Go ahead and record. And I'll just say one other thing. We put the recording on so that Michael can't say anything else to us. So. Well, thank you guys, all of you, for coming today. It's so good. It's so good having you guys, all of you. We appreciate it very much. We know it takes time out, but I'll tell you what, this is a really good stroke warrior meeting. We call it warrior meetings because we feel that we are warriors. We're not just survivors. And very important stuff. There's a few of you missing, but one thing that we do is we always record these meetings, and then we send them out to our database of people so that everybody gets a chance to hear them and learn from them and grow and get better all the time. So I would like to ask everybody, because as these grow and they get a little bit bigger, I'd like to have anybody that has a question to raise their hand, or there's a way you can do it on the Zoom as well. It helps keep things rolling the way we want. As Dr. Applebaum talks today, there's going to be a lot of comments. I'm sure of it. And so if we can kind of keep that organized the best we can, I'd really appreciate that. That'll help a lot. Last week 2 weeks ago, we had Molly, who is going to start running our caregiver groups, and she did a fabulous job. I hope you guys all saw the recording. If not, let us know. We'll get you a copy of the recording. We're very excited to have her do that. It's going to be on the first Wednesday of every month at 3 o'clock. First Wednesday of every month, 3 o'clock. And we really want you guys to have your caregivers sign up for those. And it doesn't matter where you're at, none of that. This is a Zoom meeting, and it's really important that we get the word out and we get the caregivers. They need a voice as well, right? A lot of times as stroke survivors, we're not as in tune to the caregivers' needs, frankly, because they're paying attention to us a lot of the time. And so I just think it's really important that we give the caregivers what they need. And this meeting would really be good because then they can communicate and they can tell stories about people like me and people like Michael all the time. Isn't that right, Michael?
Yeah, I guess that's the truth.
And it's good for them. And so we're very excited to get that kicked off and do the right thing, and get that out there. So it's going to be the first of the month, and Ben will be sending out the meeting stuff. But one thing that's really important, and Ben, can you help me here? We need your information. If you're a caregiver, we need to make sure we get you into our SAO database so that we can send you the notifications so that you're sure to get on those meetings. So Ben, do you want to just chat about that for a second, please?
Yeah, no, I just threw in the chat. It's a simple link. Just click it, put your name, information in there. It's just email. And then in the comments section, just we'll put for caregiver group, and then we'll get you all lined up, and then you'll get all notifications for the caregiver group. Very good. And then also, Ben, would you put my email in there as well, Keith? You find it. I don't know what it says. Would you put my email in there for everyone as well, in case anybody needs to reach out to me? I do get a lot of personal emails, and we really know how important it is to stay in touch with everybody and help. So we're very committed to that. Real quick, you know what? I'm gonna move this down. I want to get right into Dr. Bryce Applebaum today. So today we have Dr. Bryce, and what do you go by? Yeah, I don't want to call you the wrong thing.
You can call me anything you like. My patients all call me Dr. B, but Bryce, and it's all good.
Dr. B it is.
All right.
Yeah, thank you. And so Dr. B is a board certified vision therapist. He's from a family that, gosh, they know their stuff. Our very own Jeff Chetlin, who is on the call here. I'm going to have Jeff talk about Dr. B for a second. We're very excited to have you, sir. We appreciate your time. We know that it's takes time out to do this, and it helps all of us stroke survivors. And we just love having you on here, and thank you so much for that. I want to say one other thing. One of the quotes from his book is that vision therapy addresses how the eyes work together with the brain and the rest of the body. It's based on the belief that some eye problems can be improved that retrain the eyes and the brain to work together. And so that is so huge for us. And so, Jeff, if you don't mind, buddy, I can't find, oh, there you are. If you wouldn't mind saying a few things about Dr. Bryce, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. So I'm a year and a half out of my stroke. And one of the things I've learned in my year and a half is how many people have strokes, what percentage of them have visual issues. And I'm happy to say that, you know, I can walk, I can talk. My deficits are really nothing more than equilibrium, walking, dizziness, and some vision issues. I had strabismus surgery a few months back, which maybe possibly could have been prevented if I would have met Bryce earlier. However, it's an ongoing thing. You know, I've never worn glasses in my life, but I have some readers on so I can see my phone. But I met Bryce through a friend of a friend, and I called him. I actually called him because I live only 4 hours. I live in Pittsburgh. He's in Washington, D.C. I called him and I said, you know, here's my situation. Do you think you could help me? And I didn't want to go all the way down there and say, no, I can't. But he said, just come on down for an evaluation. And he seemed pretty positive. I went there and ran me through a battery of tests and says, I can help you. And he was very honest with me. And he said, you know, I had a cerebellar stroke. And he was very honest. He's been nothing but honest with me. He said, I don't know if I can help that dizziness because that's your cerebellum. But, you know, so I went down, and what I do is I stay in a hotel for a week, and I go to his clinic, and he has a bunch of docs working for him that ran me through all these exercises. And it's almost impossible for me to explain what these exercises are, except for the best way for me to say it is in the 90s, you remember those posters that were up on a wall, and you would look at the poster and you would see nothing until you stared through it, and a vision would come forward. And in these exercises, and it's the best way for me to describe these exercises, are absolutely mind-blowing. And I used the word remarkable and fascinating so many times in my week there. And I would do 2 hours a day for 6 days. And that was back in December. And I just got back last week. I was with him for another week. And I can't say enough. I mean, I was desperate for some help. And he not only worked me through from a visual standpoint, but put me in touch with a nutritionist, which I'm pretty up on nutrition and foods, but I kind of went on a keto diet for a while because they're finding out that ketosis is good for the brain healing. He put me in a bunch of supplements, but the exercises really seem to be improving. And when I first met him, he did these baseline tests. And then before I left a few days ago, he redid them. And he came to me and gave me the results and said, look how much you can see and look how much you can do. And it's an ongoing process. And I'm really, I tell everyone about him. And if anybody out there has visual issues, this guy's the guy to see. And why do I drive from Pittsburgh or from Pennsylvania to DC? There's no one around me that does any of this stuff. There's nobody. And, you know, I'd rather be a mile up the road from my house, but I go there because I believe in this guy. And I know he's new in my life, but when you hear him talk, he's very eloquent. He's very confident. He's very, you know, I'm a guy at this point in my life, I can look people in the eye and know if they're bullshitting me or not, but the guy is right on. And he's got a really good grasp on what he does. And I think you'll be hearing more about him in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Great.
So, Dr. B, that was pretty good. take it away.
That was
buddy.
great. Jeff, appreciate the kind words. And clearly Jeff is brilliant because everything he's saying here must be true. So, and I really appreciate you guys all having me here. You know, the awareness needs to be raised. The vision problems are everywhere. And, you know, I want to share a little bit more about what I do, where I come from, but I really want to keep most of this as just an opportunity to answer questions. And I know you're all going to leave with a lot of pretty eye-opening, no pun intended, thoughts on all this. So just real quick from a show of hands, you know, who in here has seen an eye doctor after suffering from your stroke? Okay, so virtually everyone. And who in here has been told that from that eye doctor, your eyes are healthy and you can see 20/20 or see the small letters far away, eyes are not contributing to any of these challenges in life?
Yeah.
Some, and I think that's really a problem in today's medical culture, where so many doctors are solely focused on the pursuit of 20/20 eyesight and seeing tiny letters and making sure the eyes are healthy, which absolutely is important, but we really need to be looking at eyesight and vision as these separate entities. Eyesight being the ability to see, whether that's letters on a letter chart or street sign, or what, you know, for a child, what the teacher writes on the board in the classroom. That's what glasses are for. Vision is far more complex. Vision is how our eyes move together and converge and focus and process information and track, and how we derive meaning from the world around us and then direct the appropriate action. Vision problems are brain problems, and they need to be treated as such. And there's a solution for these brain problems in many cases with something called vision therapy, which is essentially physical therapy for the brain through the eyes, with the intention of raising to somebody's awareness what they're doing, how they're processing the world, so that we can rewire the software in their brain to change how they're using vision and to establish order from all of this disorder. When we talk about vision, there's more areas of our brain dedicated to processing vision than all of the other senses combined. And
Wow.
2/3 of the neurons entering our brain come from our eyes. So in my opinion, you can't have a head injury, whether it's a concussion or a stroke or any type of acquired event, and not have vision be impacted. It's just a matter of kind of at what level. And Jeff shared so many symptoms that are so common, like blurry vision, double vision, eye strain, headaches, difficulty processing information, balance concerns, which I would argue are pretty much always involved with any type of acquired injury. But again, it's a matter of how is that interfering with function and life. So I'm a neurooptometrist by training, board certified in vision therapy, like Keith had shared. And, you know, vision therapy is a subspecialty that's garnering a lot more attention lately, but still we have a long way to go in terms of, you know, allowing all of us who in school are just taught about intervening with disease, and that there's no neuroplasticity after age 8 and the critical period, all this stuff from hundreds of years ago that's just false now and disproven. And we know that at any age, any brain can be taught new things. You are all living proof of that. And that with the right arrangement of conditions, we don't have to settle with status quo, and we can do so much to improve eye movements and visual skills, and eyes working together as a team, and eyes, brain, and body working as a solidified unit. And, you know, I think that's something where, as a profession, there's so few of us who have this specialty. You know, in the DC, Maryland area, for instance, there's probably 6,000 or 7,000 eye doctors. There's only 8 of us who are board certified in this.
Wow.
And even out of those 8, what vision therapy looks like, there's not consistency. It's not like physical therapy. I know somebody in here said they were a PT. You know, if you have a sprained MCL, let's say, for instance, it's around X amount of sessions, around this type of work, and it's kind of consistent depending on where you go. But what vision therapy is very different depending on where you go. And you don't have to be board certified to offer it. So a lot of PTs and OTs are adopting vision exercises because the need is so great with all the awareness that's being raised about head injuries these days. But a lot of that kind of works on, you know, tracking and eye movement can control across our midline this way, but so much of life takes place this way. And that's the eye coordination, and the inside and outside muscles of the eye is working in synergy. And, from a vision therapy standpoint, in my opinion, we don't use our visual system in isolation of other systems. We should be incorporating cognition and balance and movement and vestibular input and all the systems into all the treatments, so it can be as holistic and integrative as soon as possible, to have the highest ceiling in terms of improvement. So if you can't tell, I could talk about this stuff forever. I don't want to bore you guys and just kind of talk at all the faces on the screen here. I would love to answer questions, even go around the group if you'd like with any types of questions. I really just want you all to leave today knowing really two main things. Number one, the eyesight and vision discrepancy, which hopefully we all get now. But number two, and the most important part of all this, is that where you are now in your journey of recovery and back to your old self is just a point in time. And as Jeff can speak to, the motivation and the expectation for improvement and the not establishing status quo, that's really what opens up doors for the future. And a lot of you have probably heard from other types of specialists that we're at maximum medical improvement, or we've plateaued in certain areas, or there's not more that can be done because insurance says we only get 4 hours together, and whatever the limitations are, and there's so many, and accessibility is one, and caregivers is one. I mean, there's so many limitations, but just recognize that everyone here deserves to live their best life. And I love that this group is stroke survivors, not stroke victims. And I love how collective you all are in terms of this mission, and how friendly it seems like you all are. And I would love this group to hit 10x the amount of people involved. And I'm going to do my best to be sending along your contact information so that we can make a big tidal wave to just get the help that we all deserve.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was awesome. I've got comments written down, but I want to make sure I open it up to everybody first. So let's, and thanks again, Dr. B, that was awesome. Let's start by asking anybody if they have specific questions or just questions for Dr. B. Jim Patterson.
Dr. B, thank you for joining us. I went to my ophthalmologist after my stroke, and the ophthalmologist told me that as a result of the blood clot that settled behind my right optic nerve, that my retina basically was starved of blood supply. And so I am blind in my right eye. Could you speak to how processing everything through one eye now impacts my fatigue level, and this sense that I have of brain fog from the right side of my nose to my ear?
Absolutely. Now, I'm so sorry you're going through this, and I know that's got to be really challenging for you just to do the simple tasks of daily life. We have two eyes. Our brain is wired to have two eye information, but have them kind of be linked together as one unit. And so many of the patients I work with, have fully functioning eyes, but there's this rivalry or competition over sensory input where the brain almost picks one eye, it ignores the other, and sometimes suppresses input from one eye, and that can limit depth perception and the ability to just kind of react to what's around us. And if blood flow is deprived to an area of the brain, there can be, or an area of the eye, there can be tissue damage, there can be disruption of structure, but function, is obviously influenced by structure. And I would say that under two eye conditions with both eyes open, your brain is still making conscious decisions, sometimes at unconscious levels, over which eye to use. And your brain's probably still getting signals sent to it from two different standpoints. But because that innervation is different with the eye that's compromised, it's almost a delay in processing, a delay in response time to then shift like a seesaw and use the better functioning eye. So definitely your depth perception wouldn't be the same as it was, having two eyes working perfectly together. I'd imagine your visual midline has shifted. So it's almost like your body sense of center is now in a different position and closer to the functioning eye. That can impact balance and coordination and navigating through space and stairs and escalators and so many tasks where, you really have to rely on another sensory input to give yourself guidance. So I'm sure you're holding on to railings a lot more and probably more hesitant going through positions in space. I think physical therapy, vestibular therapy, vision therapy, occupational therapy can be really helpful to just kind of empower you with, excuse me, the right skills and abilities to support life. But also, having essentially one really functioning eye means that eye's abilities are that much more important to life. And so, work can be done to help with focus, stamina, and flexibility, and holding fixation or an eye movement, because even when you're reading, that eye movements, it doesn't have a friend there to help kind of ease the load. And if anything, it's got a drain on the system where you're having to kind of shift very often. Is it well, and I don't feel free to reach out to me at any point, Jim, but I think there's a difference between kind of lights off vision and then lights on, but contrast and quality being very, very, very reduced, because then the brain's having to put together two images that are dissimilar, and that can be very confusing.
Yeah, I've got nothing. No light sensitivity, nothing.
Okay. And with time, it gets a lot easier to adapt, but I think also, going through certain treatment or visual enhancement of certain treatment can make it so that you can function more easily. I will say I've worked with more than a handful of patients who have had similar types of problems, and in many of the cases, the stroke was in the occipital lobe, so both eyes lights were out. And I work very closely with the Wilmer Eye Institute at Hopkins here in Maryland, and with a few other big hospitals, where oftentimes they'll send a patient over and say, is there anything that can be done? We've really tried everything, and I'm not really sure. See if there's something you could do. And there's plenty of patients where, although all the textbooks and all the medical models would say, nope, there's a line in the sand, what you see is what you get right here. I've, as crazy as the sounds, have helped people who haven't been able to see develop sight in certain positions, or develop contrast or awareness in certain positions, where I think of one guy in particular who had 2 strokes in his occipital lobe back to back within a 2-month period. And, we worked a while together, but it got to a point where he could follow a moving hand in terms of motion to really walk around the house and go to the bathroom on his own, and to be able to, find where his bed was. And that was huge for him.
Mhm.
So there are certain tests that can kind of predict a prognosis and how likely certain areas would be. And also, as Jeff shared, there's certain things we know, there's certain things we don't know, but also we know how we can force the brain to have to operate and tap into systems that were maybe bypassed for whatever reasons. And I kind of relate the brain after a stroke as like a piece of Swiss cheese. There's different holes that we're not using. We can fill in holes by allowing other areas to compensate in many cases, but obviously not in all cases. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, it's helpful. And our brain can do a lot, but in my case, it sounds like I have faulty equipment. So I'm not sure there's much the brain can do with that.
I would say it's hard to say without, obviously doing a full evaluation. But I think if your balance is off, if you're hesitant through space, I think there's definitely ADL training, or activities of daily living training, that could be really helpful at just getting you more confident and comfortable in your world.
Well, I get around good, and I'm still driving. They didn't take my license. So I'm a monocular driver now.
Yeah. You only need one eye to drive in most states. You got to see 20/40 or better. You got to have a periphery at a certain level, but they don't care if you have 2 eyes. They don't care if you're seeing double. I actually got in a little bit of a fight today with a young man who is seeing double constantly and has for a long time, and says, well, why are you telling me I can't drive? Of course I could drive. I know which is the real image. So I said, you legally, I can't tell you you can't drive, but you know, as a friend and somebody who's hopefully getting you to a better place, I would not be comfortable with you driving. And I think if you don't know where things are respectfully, it's hard to anticipate where they will be, especially when the world's so disrupted.
Thank you for joining us today and for addressing my question. It means an awful lot to just be able to talk to somebody who knows what the hell they're talking about, to share information back to us.
Yeah.
Thank Jim, or thank Jeff. He's the reason I'm here. And
Okay.
happy to share any way
I
I
have a
can.
question.
Wait, please, everybody. So we've got Pam Cast is next, and then we'll go to Rosemary after that.
Okay.
Okay, Dr. B, I was diagnosed with left side deficit, where the lower left quadrant of my eyesight is compromised. My cognition is not compromised at all.
I am sorry to hear that. How has that impacted life?
Not a whole lot. I read a tremendous amount,
That's great.
so I have to have good light in order to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But people can come in to my room and sit on my left side and I might not know they're there.
Do you know if was it discussed about visual neglect versus visual field deficits, or you just know it's hard to take in what's the lower left?
They just told me it was neglect.
So, you know, being a big reader, you're fortunate it's on the left side versus the right, because the right side seems to be more frustrating for a lot of people, reading and making eye movements, jumping left to right. If we're reading English, obviously, kind of going to no man or no woman's land, you know, making an eye movement to where you're not able to be aware. With your particular situation, there's actually a lot that can be done from a neurooptometrist standpoint. You know, I think the simplest would be certain glasses that, you know, there's something called Prism. Prism is essentially a lens that just moves where something's located in space. So depending on, you know, the area and whether it's a quadrant or a section or, you know, a hemifield, we can literally take that world with Prism and move things from left to right, so that what was not aware to the left is now in gaze that you can make sense of. That can be in a portion of a pair of glasses. It can be in a whole pair of glasses. You know, I'm sure you've learned there's a lot that you can do to kind of adjust your world. So, you know, if it's the lower left, that's difficult. If you're turning your body a little bit to the left, you're having more usable space and relying a little more on your right hemifield. There are certain you know, lenses as well that can change how your brain is focusing or allowing your eyes to focus, but also vision therapy. This is one area where there's really not great research or literature to support vision therapy improving visual field deficits. But I would say in clinical practice, it could not be farther from the truth. And it's a problem. I think I read a study that said the average piece of research doesn't get put into clinical practice until 17 years after it's published.
Oh, jeez.
So I know from this standpoint, you know, there's a school down in Florida that's doing some research, and we're actually providing data to them. And I'm a professor at a different school as well, and we all try and work together as much as we can. But you know, I would say in clinical practice, you know, if we were to map out your visual field with the machine where you're pressing the button every time the light goes on, and it's almost like a video game that is way too long and not so fun always. You know, we could say that if it's, let's say, from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock, that quadrant is missing. With vision therapy, we can literally manipulate the world to those positions, kind of massage those areas, and sometimes even improvements in some data points. Even a few data points can be the difference between, you know, getting your driver's license or not, you know, avoiding injury or accident or not. But also, being able to see the curb that's over down to the left as you're stepping down, or to be able to not trip over the toy that's on the floor if your child or grandchild is around. So, I think don't let people tell you nothing can be done. I think until you arrange the conditions and force your brain to have to tap into those pathways based off of where the stroke was and how localized it is. A lot can be done, and now a lot of visual field work can be done through virtual reality. So you can even, be sedentary and still potentially make some progress.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pam.
Thank you.
So, and we're gonna move to Rosemarie, I
Yes,
think it is.
Rosemary.
And then I've got a couple of chat questions as well after that. So go ahead, Rosemarie.
My husband, Frank, he's had about 6 strokes. He's very fortunate that he's walking and talking and able to take care of his needs. But he's lost a good bit of his central vision. He can see, but he says things are kind of blurry. Of course, I'm not looking through his eyes, so I can't tell you. He does read with some difficulty. I was wondering our doctor here has told us there's nothing that can be done, but I beg to differ, and I just was curious as to whether or not I'm right, that there's something else that he can do, rather than, take the dead end road of nothing we can do. So that's basically, I'd like to, he hasn't driven for 2 years now. And I'd like for him to be able to feel a little bit more independent and being confident to be able to do that. And so, I was wondering if there's something more that we can do. I'll come to DC.
If you
Bring
don't mind
him
me,
with me.
if you don't mind me interjecting right now,
Yeah.
exact same thing as your husband. I only had 1 stroke, but the way I look at it, maybe I'm stepping on Bryce's feet when I say this, but what do you have to lose? That's the way I look at it. And
Right.
it can only get better. And, I'm not working, my wife's not working anymore. And for me to go to DC, now I can get off a curb much easier. I am actually driving again. I'm actually riding my bike, not just in a circle, but on trails. And I honestly believe that what Bryce is doing for me is just another step in the curative process. And I'm not giving up. And I don't know your husband's situation, and maybe Bryce says I'm crazy, but I really don't think you have anything to lose.
I agree with you. I agree with you. It's a matter of whether I'll come to DC. I bring him with me, just so that
We used to live in DC way back.
we used to live in it.
I started
Well, why'd you
in
leave?
Washington DC.
Well,
and
we
Northern Virginia.
retired in North Carolina, and then he had a stroke, and I decided that I needed to have some family help, so we moved to Colorado, and then he had 5 more strokes here within a 2-week period of time. Only after 2 weeks that we had arrived here. So it's been.
We didn't know any doctors or anything.
Yeah, it's been kind of difficult. We had, in North Carolina, there was some support, but there's very little here. So, and I've been dragging him here, there, and yon in order to find help. So if this could help, I'll be there.
To Jeff's point, I'm of course incredibly biased, but vision is our dominant sensory system. It should be what's guiding and leading. It should be what allows us to interact with our world. And it's our first contact with almost anything when there's movement. So, I think what you mentioned about the central vision, we've got 2 main pathways in our brain that process information, one that's central processing, one that's peripheral processing. You've heard of kind of the 20/20 zone, and that's the sweet spot of our eyesight. But if you think about how each eye sees as being almost like a bullseye, depending on where the stroke is and how reduced the eyesight is, so much of periphery is the key to localizing centrally. And Jess heard us, yell in his ear 100 times, open up your periphery, open up your side vision, because that lets us localize, where things are in front of us. Movement responds to, or we respond to movement with our peripheral vision and with the outside side portions of our retina, not just kind of that sweet spot, that macula.
If you
So
don't
the
mind,
fact that
you know what I mean, adding one of my experiences was very frustrating a few days ago, where I was standing at a board staring at a bunch of letters outside of my central vision. And I absolutely hated this thing. And they did it to me a couple times. And I was supposed to stare at the center of the star and never move my eyes or my head from that, but try to put my finger on little letters. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I would cheat. I would look. And by the second time I did it, cheating, help it. You want to find your A, so you look up there. But when I did it the second time, lo and behold, now granted, she moved the letters in a little closer for me, but lo and behold, I found those letters. And you can increase that peripheral vision. It's very bizarre. I can't explain it. That's all I can say.
And
Well, if
every time in life, when we see something, we want to learn more about it, we make an eye movement to
Right.
change our attention, whether it's voluntary or involuntary. And almost never are we saying, don't move your eyes, but be able to pick out and localize what's around you. That's, putting Jeff in a situation that wasn't fun, but it's forced him to tap into that other processing pathway that, when we're under stress in general, our autonomic nervous system, our fight or flight system, shifts into heavy tunnel vision, heavy central processing, and we collapse periphery.
This is his problem. It's like a tunnel vision. I'll ask him
Yeah.
to get something and he's walking around like a robot, not being able to visually track where that thing is. And he's given up painting. He was an excellent artist.
After my
And
first
he
stroke.
won't go back to it. He says he can't see and he gets very frustrated. And so that takes away from a person's quality of life. And
Mhm.
and if you feel that, that there's some glimmer of hope that would help
What
retrain
information
his vision to better see, tell me when and where, and I'll be there.
Well, so let me first give you guys 2 resources that are really helpful just for information.
Okay.
One is visionhelp.com. So visionhelp.com. So that's an organization I'm a part of. It's 10 practices around the country, all specialized at the same kind of global level with goals of raising awareness. A lot of great research literature is all there. Another one, COVD.org, which is the College of Optometrists and Vision Development at
What is it again?
COVD.org. And so that's
.org.
you can there's a section that says locate a doctor. You can type in an address or a zip code, and it can give you a search radius of within X amount of miles.
Okay.
At least from an evaluation standpoint, I would say you definitely want to see somebody that has the letters FCOVD after their name, which means they're board certified. From an evaluation standpoint,
You said
FCOVD.
FCOVD?
Yep, and there'll be a box you can click that says under the search, only finding somebody who's board certified. And I think from an evaluation standpoint, a lot of the evaluations are similar in terms of coming to the diagnoses that really describe the situation. The differences really lie in the treatment and the therapy. And to me, that's the most important piece to the puzzle. But, rather than necessarily, saying, I think an evaluation lets you know whether there's a likelihood of improvement. But again, the consistency of what vision therapy looks like, that's something that I'm heavily working on now and for the future to train doctors in the work that we do so that there's just more consistency and people can get the care they deserve. But from everything you're describing, it sounds like there's lots of splinter skills, but not the ability to kind of use these all in synergy. And to me, that seems like functional challenges on top of structural problems, which would seem like a good indication for improvement.
Rosemary, let me
yeah.
interrupt for a second here.
Yeah.
Do you have an email address?
Yes.
Okay, either can you type it or do you want to just say it?
let me say it because I'm
Right.
I'm new at this thing, so I'm not sure exactly how to type it in for
Okay,
you.
Go
But
ahead.
it's, okay, it's FRAROSE. So Fra Rose 69 at gmail.com.
Okay, thank you. Because we'll make sure we'll make sure we get followed up with you too. I want to make sure we combine and we get some more questions answered. I love it. Very
I
good.
appreciate
We'll-
it so very much.
Yeah, we'll
It's
reach
been
out to
very
you.
frustrating.
Yeah, I hear you, but we'll reach out and we'll make sure
What
that we
else
get all
what
of
else,
Dr.
guys,
Bryce's
was
information
his
to
book?
you.
His book was amazing. If you get the book,
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'll be sending that out to everybody, you know.
Okay.
The book is amazing.
I
I've
have-
got, it's earmarked 1,000 times. There's other stuff in here.
No.
I'm telling you, the ADHD stuff is incredible as well,
Yeah.
frankly.
And just so y'all know, I'm writing the next version of this. It's all on concussion and head injury. And if you think this is good, this new one's going to be awesome. I'm just not sure how quick. I keep wanting to add more to it, so I don't know when it's going to be out.
So Lanae, wait a second, please. I've got a couple of questions that are on here. I want to just hit you with. Are you okay, Dr. B, if I kind of ask these 2 or 3 questions and then you can go with it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So the first one was, does vision therapy have application for the neurodivergent community?
So I would say functional vision problems are very common in certain communities, specifically, definitely in that one as well. And if you can think about all vision problems as being in one of 2 camps, either visual developmental delays or acquired problems, the visual developmental delays really stems from the fact that every child is born without the ability to track or focus or converge or use their eyes together as a team. And through our life experiences, that is something that is acquired. That's something that's learned from these experiences.
Okay.
If we're, especially now more than ever, when kids are being introduced to screens and technology earlier than ever before, and kids are often reading now in kindergarten before they're visually ready, we're seeing a terrible amount of vision problems emerging earlier and earlier than ever.
Wow.
And I've given a bunch of interviews in the last even month or so on how screen time is the new pandemic and how it's ruining our kids' eyes. But very often the neurodivergent community has development in certain areas that is faster than others. And if we don't have the tools in place to meet the demands for reading, for learning, for screens, for driving, that's when these adaptations come out, and they're maladaptations and they can be eliminated with the right treatment.
Very good. Thank you so much. I'm trying to keep up with these. Let's see, what kind of strategies, exercises would you consider for a person post-stroke with PRISM? Who is
So
it? Let me
Yeah.
finish this. Who is experiencing photosensitivity?
Wow.
that's me.
Light sensitivity is really common with any type of head injury, and is a really good indicator of, again, that autonomic nervous system, the fight or flight system. Very often how the pupil functions is absolutely related to how well the brain can control that sympathetic parasympathetic response, which is literally pupils getting smaller, getting bigger. So in the light, getting smaller, looking close, getting smaller, and then in the dark, getting bigger, looking the distance, getting bigger. That also is very much related to our focusing system, the ability, the inside muscles to make something clear. That muscle is behind the pupil. So if we are even having trouble, which is the automatic responses of reacting to light, we can't control pupil size naturally. We're not gonna be able to control our focus the same way we would otherwise.
Wow.
So I think strategies, definitely sunglasses. There's phenomenal improvement that can come with tints or filters, which are one of the biggest kept secrets in this type of population in the neurooptometry world. There's certain colored tints or glasses that can take all this chaos and make it calming. And specific ones for brain injury, there's these omegas, bluish purple tints that are typically more favorable than others. For visual snow patients or with hypersensitivities cortically, there's this FL41, this kind of yellowish orange one, which are really common for neurologists for migraines. But there's also an infinite number of tints. So we literally can measure with performance tests how performance is with a certain tint versus without, and even something simple as how does the room feel with this on versus with this off. And if we're already wearing prism, it means we're already wearing glasses. Adding tint in there can be life-changing.
Wow. Wow. That was, it's crazy to me. This is exciting, actually. Last one that I'm going to read is it true that occipital lobe strokes repair faster than other types?
Interesting.
Gunnar, do you want to comment on this? Quickly.
Well, when I went to Johns Hopkins after my 2 strokes almost 7 years ago, that's something that one of the professors there told me, that my vision will come back faster than the resulting problems I had from the brainstem stroke. They said it would come back faster, and in fact, it did improve. My vision's back 100%. It came back 98% within about 9 months or so. But because I had no control of my right eye for focus or direction. I still had vision through it, but I couldn't see. So I had double vision. I was wearing a patch for a while and stuff, and trying to do as many exercises as I could to try to strengthen the muscles of my connections to bring that vision back again. But today I'm back to the 2020. So
good for you. So
Yeah.
the number one most common symptom after a stroke is double vision. And so many times patients come in wearing an eye patch, and you take off the patch and the eyes are pointing in different places, but obviously that's how they're acting as well. I think to answer your question, it definitely depends on where in the occipital lobe the event occurs. But what I love from that is really 2 take-homes. The majority of eye doctors would say that the brain is not malleable, and there's a critical period for vision development that after age 8, literally you blow out the candles and then poof, on your 8th birthday and one day, you can no longer learn how to use your visual system any other way. As silly as that sounds, I would say 90% of doctors, that's what they still preach. And I graduated school in 09, and even then, that's what we were taught. So it's still fairly new. I mean, we have groundbreaking research and literature to support that's just false. But then also a lot of people will say, even if there is neuroplasticity and malleability as we get older, the older you get, the harder it gets. The fact that you're an adult and you were told that there can even be improvement, and they're not kind of drawing a line in the sand saying no chance for hope, I think that's fantastic. I currently in office therapy have a 97-year-old, 94-year-old, and an 89-year-old making unbelievable progress developing depth perception for the first time.
Love it.
And there's also a great book called Fixing My Gaze, which would be a great one to add to your book list, written by a woman named Susan Berry. She had 2 eye muscle surgeries as a child, was stereo blind. Stereopsis is the medical term for depth perception. Significantly impacted her life. She actually became a visual neurobiologist teaching about the critical period and how this can't occur at Mount Holyoke College. So a colleague of mine, they got into a little bit of a healthy argument saying we can fix this. Susan said no, we can't. Long story short, went through treatment, developed depth perception for the first time. Is now one of the leading proponents of vision therapy. She's done a TED Talk. There's a great article, couple great interviews with her and Oliver Sacks. You can even Google Stereo Sue and you'll see her on YouTube. But I think a great kind of recount of what this type of work is like for an adult. And she's actually a good friend, and anyone can email her and she will get back to you. And she's a great person to talk to. But that's great, Gunnar, and I'm glad that things have come back. I would say I'm shocked that that was even any of that was shared with you, because Wilmer is typically very close-minded, and if in their opinions, if they don't offer a treatment, it can't possibly be worthwhile. But now post-COVID, we work directly with them because they're recognizing, you know, how important a lot of this work is, especially for people who are noticing significant challenges from screen engagement, you know, especially in the last 3 years.
Absolutely.
Well, the
So
real-
after,
the real
even
challenge
after
that
a
I
couple
had-
of years,
What,
even after a
real
couple of
challenge-
years,
okay, one second. Let Gunnar
Okay.
finish and then Rosemary, and then we got a question from Lanae.
okay,
It really pissed me off when I went to Hopkins and with other doctors, and I asked them straight out, how long is it gonna be for me to recover? When is stuff gonna come back? And the answer I got at first was, oh, you'll get most of what you're gonna get back in 3 months. And 3 months passed, and then they told me, no, it's gonna.
oh, no.
Oh. Gunnar, we just lost you.
froze.
buddy. Yeah. So Rosemary, you go ahead.
Yeah,
Lanae's got a
So
question.
basically, if I'm understanding correctly, despite the fact that his stroke was 2 years ago, there's still a chance for him to be able to improve his eyesight with these exercises. Am I correct?
In my opinion, how long it's been, the only that impacts things from two standpoints. Number one, if there are bad habits or maladaptations that are formed, they can become more embedded with time. So it's maybe harder to break, but absolutely there, you know, whether it's been 10 days, 10 years, that
Okay.
doesn't preclude success.
Okay.
And then number two, that
When are you
the-
moving to Central Oregon?
well, real quick, I'll answer that once. Number two is the emotional implication and the toll this takes on. The longer it's been, the harder it is to just get yourself in a position to be open to this type of treatment. And to answer your question, I have a lot of very lofty goals, and I plan on creating versions of what I do in my clinic and other places. And we have a residency program where we're training docs to do what we do, and then take this and bring it elsewhere. But especially if Jeff talks highly about Oregon, so I'm intrigued by Oregon. We'll see.
Western Colorado is fantastic too.
Okay, we're gonna go to Lanae. We're gonna start wrapping up here in a minute. So
I don't really have a question. I have a comment. My stroke was 8 years ago, as most of you know. As I look back on my stroke recovery, one of the things that I think I did not adequately address as a patient is eye therapy. I did a little bit of eye therapy, but I never really had that strong impetus from, you know, the medical community. Recently, my daughter had a very, very serious concussion. And the first thing she did was go to eye therapy. She did it for 2 months. I am amazed at the progress she made on healing that concussion from
Wow.
eye therapy. So I think this is a hugely overlooked arena for stroke recovery.
Absolutely.
yeah. Yeah,
More
thank
than
you.
half my practice now is concussion rehab, and it's, you know, there's a presentation I give every October. 3 years ago, I shared that we were about 15%. 2 years ago, about 25%, and then a year ago it was over 50%. And that's, you know, I think more just the awareness being raised of how much as a medical community we have learned, but also how much more we need to learn, and how no two patients are the same, no two should be treated the same.
So why
but-
hasn't the NFL hired you?
Yeah,
So
right.
I'll tell you, I work with a bunch of pro teams. If anyone has seen the concussion movie with Will Smith, where there's a very famous line from that saying, "We don't have a concussion problem, or we don't have a head injury problem." That was their mindset forever. We now have lawsuits that are out. We now have CTE studies. I think politics is absolutely the main concern, but off the record here, a lot of the teams I work with, I'll have somebody from the sideline ask questions when something occurs and say, our team neurologist says XYZ, what should this person actually do? And I think it's more, there's a lot of politics involved. So it can be,
sure.
Of course.
that interferes with a lot in life.
So I'm
Yes, it does.
gonna take back over everybody because of the time. Now, first of all, Dr. B, that was super incredible. We would love to have you back. I'm not joking, sooner than later, if you are okay with that.
I am there.
Jeff, thank you so much, buddy. I can't believe it. So we're gonna post a blanket post, and we will put all the information on there. Michael wants to remind everybody too that there's a happy hour stroke group coming. We're gonna post all this, you guys, so I can get everything on because of the timing. This was an incredible survivor meeting. And
Absolutely.
as we like to call them, warrior meetings. So
Yeah.
Dr. B, it's warriors next time.
I love it. I love it. Can I give 2 more resources real fast, just for anybody
Please,
who's interested?
and then I also would love to, as you and I email, if you send those to me, I'll make sure everybody gets them as well.
I'll just send them to you, make it easier.
Yeah, okay, if that's fine, I'm okay if you want to say them. So
If you
Okay,
wanna
well,
say, we look
3 more
for-
real quick. There's Nora.com, I think, NORA. That's the Neuro-Optometric Rehabilitation Association, another association that's really good at promoting awareness. I have a website called concussionclear.com, which is a great way to just kind of identify all the vision problems associated with head injury and makes it a little bit clearer on what working with us looks like if you're not local. And then we have lots of kind of online training programs, which I will say definitively that office-based individualized care is the best treatment, fastest, best results, and what most people with any type of head injury need. But there are other programs that can kind of help establish visual foundations in place. There's one that's called ScreenFit that's out. I've got a sports vision training program that's out. So I'll send you a bunch of this stuff and feel free to just have it as resources.
well, and we'll put it on here when we email everybody through our database so that they all get it. If no one
Great.
if you're not involved in our database, please get the word out, and you can email me or Ben or the office, but we
They
need to
can
get you-
actually go on the Stroke Awareness Oregon website
I
and
know.
sign up, right?
Absolutely, they can. And I was going to ask Ben to share that for a quick second here. Go ahead,
Hey,
Ben.
Add one more thing for 10 seconds. I forgot to leave out that when I go there for those week of intensive therapy, they also send me home with daily exercises. So in between my visits, I'm doing exercises at home too.
That's awesome.
Okay, great.
Jeff. Go
Where
ahead,
where
Ben.
in DC is Dr. B located, basically?
Main office is in Bethesda.
Bethesda, okay.
And I
Know
also
it
have an office
well.
in Annapolis, but we do most of our people from out of state in Bethesda.
In Bethesda.
Awesome.
Know it well. We live there.
Ben, go ahead, buddy.
I put in the chat, but there's a hyperlink in there. And
What?
then you can just go there, but I'll also share on my screen where you can go to.
Okay.
Would
Great.
you do me a favor, Ben?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, go for it, Keith. I can stop.
Make sure that when we save this meeting, we get all the chat saved as well, please, this time.
Done.
I appreciate that. Thank God you know how to do it.
Yeah. Just to sign up for the newsletter or get on our contact list, you're just on the homepage and you scroll down and you go straight to sign up. And there's that. So we'll be all good.
And do you want to make a quick announcement about the Mike Studer presentation?
Keith, are you all right with that real quick?
Yeah, I got it. Go ahead.
Okay. So on the homepage, you'll notice that the very top banner is this exclusive presentation banner. Basically, Mike Studer, who's a very well-known, he has numerous credentials. I can't even begin to start listing them off, but they're right here. He's giving a presentation on Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can go on here and order a ticket and pretty much just get involved. And it's going to be a live streamed event as well as recorded. And we're honestly just excited. Tickets are $15, and then there's 3 different portals to pay, donation page, PayPal, or Venmo. And then there's just a little bit more about the event on here, but it's going to be an hour long with the Q&A at the end. So we're excited about it.
Okay.
Thank you,
Great, thank
Lonnie,
you.
for saying that, and thank you, Ben, for all the help.
Where is it?
Just want to say thank you so much, Dr. Applebaum. I'm telling you, that was incredible. I would like to make sure we stay in touch so that we can get you back, because wow, there's a lot to it and it's huge. And Jeff, thank you so much, buddy.
Thank Jeff is the reason. I'll do anything for this guy. You guys are lucky to have him in your support system.
Yeah, back at him.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
He's a good guy. Dr. B, let's not talk about him. You and I can talk on the side about Jeff a little bit. I'm just teasing. I'm trying to come up with some humor. So the other thing is, you guys find the book iPower. I think it was written by Bryce's dad. But it is filled with stuff that's just incredible.
Yeah.
So we thank you so much, Dr. B. Round of applause, you guys, for him. Very, very much appreciate it. And we will have you back. I'd like to thank all of you guys. We're kind of run out of time, but we'll have another one before long. And thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank
All right.
Talk to you guys
Thank you
soon.
very
Take care.
much.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.